Imagine walking through your city and suddenly seeing a dog acting strangely. It is growling at strangers. Foam is gathering around its mouth. People begin running. Then someone whispers 3 terrifying words. It might have rabies. For centuries, that sentence could turn an ordinary neighborhood into a place of panic. But rabies wasn't just a disease. It became a monster in the public imagination. A disease so frightening that entire communities changed how they treated animals, streets, and even strangers. And the most terrifying part? Once the worst symptoms appeared, medicine had almost nothing to offer. Before modern vaccines, people understood very little about what caused rabies. They knew that certain animal bites could be followed by terrifying illness. A person might seem completely normal at first. Then days or weeks later, something changed. Anxiety, agitation, confusion, difficulty swallowing, and eventually, an almost legendary symptom, an unbearable fear of water. Even the sight or sound of water could trigger painful spasms. To people living centuries ago, it seemed almost supernatural. Was the victim possessed? Was the animal cursed? Or was something invisible moving through the body? Nobody knew. And that uncertainty made the fear even worse. As cities grew during the 18th and 19th centuries, encounters between people and stray dogs became increasingly common. Dogs were everywhere, on streets, in markets, around homes and workplaces. When reports of rabid animals appeared, authorities could face a difficult problem. How do you protect thousands of people from an animal disease that can hide before symptoms appear? In some cities, the response was dramatic. Stray dogs were captured or killed. Dog ownership became more heavily regulated. Authorities organized campaigns to remove animals from streets. And newspapers could transform individual incidents into citywide scares. A single suspected rabid dog could suddenly become the center of public attention. But rabies had another terrifying advantage. The bite might heal. The wound could disappear. The victim could return to normal life. And yet, somewhere inside the body, the virus could still be traveling toward the nervous system. That meant the real danger wasn't always visible. A person could look healthy while carrying a deadly future. This created one of the greatest fears surrounding rabies. What if the danger had already entered the body? Then came one of the most important moments in the history of rabies: 19th century France. A scientist named Louis Pasteur was determined to understand the disease. Pasteur and his collaborators studied rabies and experimented with ways to create protection against it. The breakthrough was astonishing. Instead of simply waiting for symptoms, they developed a method designed to train the body to fight the infection after exposure. In 1885, a young boy named Joseph Meister, who had been severely bitten by a rabid dog, was brought to Pasteur. At the time, the boy faced an almost unimaginable danger. Pasteur decided to try the new treatment. A series of increasingly potent preparations was administered. And Joseph Meister survived. The world had witnessed something extraordinary. Rabies was no longer an automatic death sentence after a dangerous exposure. The discovery changed medicine. But it didn't immediately erase public fear. Cities continued struggling with stray animals, suspected cases, and dangerous encounters. Governments began introducing stronger animal control measures: dog registration, leash requirements, quarantine rules, animal observation, public warnings. The streets themselves began to change. Rabies had helped reveal something important about modern cities. Public health wasn't only about hospitals. It was also about what happened outside the hospital, in streets, markets, homes, and neighborhoods. And perhaps that is why rabies became so deeply embedded in popular culture. The image of the suddenly aggressive animal became terrifying. Stories exaggerated it. Newspapers sensationalized it. People began fearing ordinary behavior in animals. A dog barking, a strange-looking fox, a nocturnal animal appearing during the day. Sometimes the animal was actually sick. Sometimes it wasn't. But once rabies entered someone's mind, every unusual animal could look dangerous. Fear itself became part of the outbreak. Eventually, scientists learned what was actually happening. Rabies is caused by a virus that attacks the nervous system. After entering the body, usually through a bite, the virus can travel along nerves toward the brain. That explains why rabies is so unusual. The disease can have a long incubation period. But once clinical symptoms appear, the disease is almost always fatal. That single fact explains the terror surrounding rabies throughout history. The crucial battle happens before the disease reaches its final stage. Modern post-exposure treatment can prevent the virus from taking control, but only if treatment is given promptly and appropriately. So, the great rabies scares weren't really caused by monsters roaming the streets. They were caused by something far more frightening. A disease people could not see coming. A bite could look harmless. A wound could disappear. Weeks could pass. And then the nervous system could begin to fail. But history also gives us a remarkable ending. The same disease that once inspired panic, superstition, and mass animal killings helped push medicine toward one of its greatest victories. From terrified streets, to Pasteur's laboratory, to modern post-exposure treatment. The history of rabies is really the story of humanity learning how to fight an invisible enemy. And even today, one lesson remains. When rabies is suspected, fear should never replace action. Because unlike the people of the past, we now have something they desperately needed: a chance to stop the disease before it reaches the brain. The script is educational and should not replace professional medical advice.